Hey bakers, and welcome back to the Kenwood Kids Club. This week I'm going to be showing you how to make a truly delicious cupcake recipe that I think is so good it's even worth making for Christmas, because yes, it's December and that means we can start getting excited about festive baking. Now these aren't truly traditional festive cupcakes because, well, they're not fruit for one thing, but what they are is packed full of everyone's favourite chocolate spread. Yes, I'm talking about this, although of course other chocolate hazelnut spreads are available. Feel free to use your personal favourite. But today I'm going to show you how to make my Nutella chocolate cupcakes. They are a chocolate cupcake stuffed full of a hidden Nutella centre. We've got a Nutella buttercream on the top, and then we're going to sprinkle them with roasted hazelnuts. And they are truly, truly delicious. So if you're a fan of chocolate hazelnut spreads, Nutella, whichever you like eating, you don't want to miss this recipe. Now, before we begin, as always, if you would like to bake along with me here in the Kenwood Kids Club, don't forget you can head down to the video description where you will find a link to the Kenwood Kids Club website where the full ingredient list and recipe are available for you. In fact, if you're planning on doing that, why not pause the video now, head down there, get everything ready, and then we can get started. Have you done it? Fantastic. So hopefully you have assembled some butter or baking spread, some caster sugar, 3 large eggs, some self-raising flour, some cocoa powder, and some baking powder. That's what we need to make the sponge mix, and that's what we're going to do first today. So if you're ready, let's get cracking. Now when it comes to baking cupcakes, one thing that makes life a lot easier is the fact that they're really small, so they're very, very forgiving. In the written out recipe, I've told you to use the creaming method, which is what I always recommend if you're working with real butter. But if you're working with baking spread, then actually you can get away with being a bit lazier. And I like to do what I call a hybrid method, which means 2 things combined together. So a little bit of creaming, and then we finish up with the all-in-one method. Now, these are lots of phrases that you might not know the meaning of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. And the first thing I'd like you to do, in the bowl of your stand mixer, or just a large bowl if you're using a bowl and spoon, is put your baking spread or your butter and your caster sugar. They both go in there, and then I'm going to use my creaming beater, which is this one with the rubbery flexible bit here, but if you don't have that, you can just use the K-beater. You might need to scrape the bowl a couple of times. Of course, if you're just doing it in a bowl with a wooden spoon, you're fine. What we're going to do is mix this on a kind of medium speed until it's really light and pale in colour, and super, super smooth. Now, I always like to start on a lower speed, and then as they start to come together, I'll increase that. Because what we're doing at the moment is we're pushing the sugar through the butter or through the baking spread, and it's going to trap lots and lots of air. That's going to help give us a really light, fluffy cupcake. So now it's started to combine. I can turn that speed up to around about a number 3. And then I'm just going to leave this mixing for around about 3 to 5 minutes, and that's going to give me that really light texture that I'm after. I'm not going to make you wait for that though, so what we'll do is jump ahead to the next step. And after around about 3 to 5 minutes, you should find that your mixture has gone really, really pale, like this one here. That means I've managed to trap loads of air into the mix. So now, this is where we're going to switch from the creaming method to the all-in-one method, because that basically means I'm going to put everything else in all in one go. You can do that particularly if you're using baking spread, because it's already very light, because it's a combination of things like vegetable fats and things, so it's not quite as dense or heavy as butter. If you're working with real butter, you do still want to follow that traditional creaming method. And again, if you head to the Kenwood Kids Club website down at the link below, you'll find that explained fully there. We've also done it in lots of videos here on the channel. Next up, I'm going to add 3 large eggs. And because we're being lazy, I'm going to go straight into the bowl today, but just watch out for any bits of shell. If you're not confident that you can do it without dropping some shell in there, then do feel free to crack them into a separate bowl or jug first of all. And number 3. And then on top of those, I'm going to add in my flour, my cocoa powder, and my baking powder. And then this can go back on the mixer. And this time we're only really looking to make sure those ingredients are combined, so we don't need to mix for very long at all. I always start on a lower speed just to make sure that flour doesn't go whoosh all over me. And then again, just like before, as they start to come together, we can gradually increase that speed to around about a number 3 again, and I'm just looking for this mixture to end up really smooth, a nice even colour, and no little pockets of flour or anything trapped around the sides. Really doesn't take very long at all. And then you should find you end up with a lovely pale chocolatey mixture. But before we move on, I'm just going to grab my spatula, scrape off this beater, because sometimes you will find you get little pockets of flour caught on it. And then with that spatula, I'm going to give it a final quick mix by hand. It's also a really good chance just to check that all the mixture at the bottom is evenly mixed as well. But this looks pretty much perfect. Once you're happy with how your cake mix is looking, I want you to grab a large 12-hole muffin tin. And a muffin tin is just a slightly deeper tin than a traditional cupcake or fairy cake tin. And then we're going to line it with 12 muffin cases. Now I'm just using white ones today, but if you really want to give your cupcakes a proper chocolatey feel, you could use a lovely brown colour or maybe even some shiny gold cases. Now I bet most of you watching at home already know what's coming next, because of course I like to fill my cupcake cases using a large ice cream scoop, and if you have one of those, they make life so much easier because they give you an even portion each time, and generally they stop you making as much mess, although every time I say that in a video I then make lots of mess. So we'll see what happens today. If you don't have a large ice cream scoop like this, you can just use a couple of tablespoons and just spoon them in yourselves. Just try and make sure they're nice and even. With the large ice cream scoop, 1 full scoop is the perfect amount for each cupcake. So let's get these filled. Once you get to this stage, these need to go into a preheated oven at 180 degrees, which is 160 degrees fan or gas mark 6, for around about 20 to 25 minutes. I like to check mine after 20 minutes and just check that they're nice and springy to the touch, and if I insert a skewer into the middle, it should come out clean of any kind of liquidy cake mixture. So we're going to pop these in there, have a bit of a tidy up, and I'll tell you what to do next. Now while our cupcakes are in the oven, this is the perfect time to make our buttercream topping, and this is going to be the first time that we introduce that all-important Nutella flavouring. To make your buttercream, you will need some butter, and a top tip here, if you find that your butter is still pretty hard at room temperature, just because it's a bit colder at this time of year, if you chop it into small cubes and pop it in the microwave for around about 10 to 15 seconds, that should make it soft enough to give you the perfect consistency for your buttercream. You're also going to need some icing sugar, and it's 2 parts icing sugar to 1 part butter. So I've got 150 grams of butter, which means I've got 300 grams of icing sugar. Of course, you're also going to need some Nutella, and you want the same amount of Nutella as you do butter, otherwise the flavour will get a little bit lost. So it's 150 grams of butter and 150 grams of Nutella. But before we get to that, we're going to start by just creaming our butter for as long as we can, because we want to make it really light and pale. Kind of like we did with the cake mix, but this time it's just about whipping loads and loads of air into the butter. Once again, I'm using that creaming beater because we all know it's my favourite. And then just mix that butter for as long as you can. And do excuse my squeaker bowl, it just means it's nice and clean. And what you should find has happened, if you mix this for a good long while, 5 to 6, 7, 8, as many minutes as you can, you end up with this really, really pale butter. It's nice and whipped up and ready for us to use to make our buttercream. So into this, I'm going to weigh out 150 grams of Nutella, and then we'll mix that in as well. Okay, so I did that off camera because my scales are over there. And then I'm just going to pop this back on the mixer, and again just mix it very briefly until it's nice and smooth. You're looking for an even colour there, so this looks pretty good to me. Again, I'll just give you a quick peek. There we are. And then I'm going to sift in my icing sugar. Now, because we're only making a small batch of buttercream today, I can add it all in one go. But if you were making a Nutella buttercream for a larger cake, you might find that you will need to add your icing sugar a little bit at a time, just to get it to mix in nice and evenly. Now, we've talked about it before, but icing sugar these days can be quite chunky and lumpy, so it's always best to sieve your icing sugar if you can, just because it makes sure that you're not going to get any lumps of sugar in your buttercream. See all those big lumps in there. If you have those too, just grab a spoon and you can use it to push the icing sugar through the sieve. And then this goes back on the stand mixer. And again, start on a low speed because otherwise you will get a cloud of icing sugar. So I always start on the little red circle one on my mixer. And then again, once it starts to come together, you can increase that speed. Now you might find that your Nutella buttercream is quite thick, and we need this to be really nice and smooth so that we can pipe it using a piping bag and a piping tip. So if you need to, you can add up to 2 tablespoons of water to this mixture just to give it that nice smooth consistency we're after. I already know that I'm going to need both of those, so I'm going to pop 2 straight in, but by all means add 1, see how it looks, and then if you need to, you can add a second one. So just popping that mixer back on. And there we go, that is our Nutella buttercream made. I'm going to grab a spatula and just whiz around the inside of that bowl just to make sure everything is fully combined. Particularly as we've added that water, you might find some of the thicker mixture is still clinging to the bottom or sides of your bowl. We want this to be lovely and smooth. So I'm just going to scrape around and give it a bit of a stir. What I'm also going to do is grab that mixer again, or that beater, and give that a scrape too, because we don't want to waste any of these delicious ingredients. And there is our Nutella buttercream. Now I'm going to leave this to sit while my cakes finish baking. I've got about 8 minutes to go, and also while they're cooling down as well, which will take somewhere between an hour and 2 hours. Now to stop it crusting over like it does when you put it on a cake, I'm just going to put some cling film over the top of this bowl and set it aside. And then what we'll do is jump right ahead to when it's time to assemble our cakes, and I'll show you what you need to do to make them. I'll see you soon. Okay, so it's been a few hours and I have now got my cooled down chocolate cupcakes. So when they come out of the oven, what you want to do is leave them to cool in their muffin tin for around about 10 minutes and then transfer them onto a cooling rack to cool down completely. When they've done that, we can carry on with our decoration. And to prepare for that, I have got my buttercream, which I gave one more stir to and then popped into a piping bag with an open star tip. Hopefully you can kind of make that out. You can use any piping tip that you enjoy using though. In here, I've got Nutella, and this is just literally scooped straight out of the jar and popped into another piping bag. And this time I don't have a tip, I've just cut the end off. I have got some chopped roasted hazelnuts, and I just bought these as they are from the supermarket. I didn't do anything to them at all. And then last but not least, I have one of these, and this is a cupcake corer. Now how this works is you use it to take out the center of your cupcake, so it leaves a hole, and then that bit goes in there. And we've used this before on the channel, but if it's your first time watching, you won't have seen. Now these can be tricky to track down sometimes. You might find them in a cake decorating shop, but if you can't get hold of one, you can use an apple corer, or you could even ask a grown-up to just cut some little holes into your cakes with a sharp knife. The reason why we're doing that is because we are going to give our cupcakes a delicious Nutella filling. And the great thing is, nobody will know it's there when they first see your cupcake, so it's like a hidden surprise. So I'm going to take all of these centers out, and sometimes when I'm making cakes like this, I'll put in a filling and then pop that piece of cake back on top again. But today I'm not going to do that because I want to put in as much Nutella as I can, because of course these are Nutella cupcakes, so they should have plenty of Nutella inside. So 3 to go. 1, 2, and finally 3. And then I'm going to grab that piping bag of Nutella and I'm just going to squeeze. If I bring this back a bit, hopefully you can see. I'm going to squeeze a big squirt into the middle of each cupcake. Now if your Nutella is really thick, in fact mine's quite thick today, what you can do is just warm it up very briefly in your microwave just to make it a little bit runnier. But today I'm going to persevere and hope that my piping bag doesn't pop because I'm squeezing so hard. Now again, if you want to do the hidden surprise centre, but not with quite as much Nutella, what you can do is just put a little squirt in and then pop that small piece of cake that we removed back on top. And then what I'm going to do is switch to the buttercream bag, and this time I'm going to start by piping over that hole just to seal everything in, and I'm just going to swirl around the outside to do a rosette. You've seen me do that lots of times because it's my favourite way to top a cupcake. But if you like piping in different patterns or experimenting, that's fine too. They'll still taste exactly the same. So, just in the centre and then a circle around the edge. Now this should be a lot easier to pipe than your Nutella because of course we added that water to get it to a perfect consistency. And if you're someone who finds piping tricky, a really good way to practice is next time you've got some leftover buttercream, just pipe onto a clean plate or a chopping board, and then you can scrape it back into the bag and do it over and over again. So it's a really good way to practice without wasting lots of ingredients. But there we go, there are my 12 chopped cupcakes, and then the last thing I'm going to do is just grab some of these chopped hazelnuts and just sprinkle them over the top. Now, if you want to, you could drizzle even more Nutella onto your cupcakes as well, but I quite like the fact that you don't know that there's Nutella in them until you bite into one, so I'm not going to do that today. But that's part of the fun of cake decorating, is you can really change it to suit what you want to do. Now cupcakes with buttercream on like this are best eaten after a few hours, because what will happen is the buttercream will kind of set and it will almost have a bit of a crust on it, which doesn't sound pleasant, but I promise you it really is. Whereas if we try and eat one now, it will be really, really soft and very messy. So this week it's going to be one of the weeks where I don't try our bake on camera, simply because I want to try them when they have had that time to rest and kind of fully set. But I promise you they're absolutely delicious, and I can just smell the wafts of Nutella kind of coming up from these cupcakes. If you fancy having a go at this recipe, don't forget you can head down to the video description where you'll find the full list of ingredients that you will need to bake along with me today, or you could click on the link to the Kenwood Kids Club website, which will take you straight to the whole recipe, including the full written out method as well. If you do have a go at it, don't forget to take a photo and upload it to the Kenwood Kids Club website. Not just because I'm really nosy and like to see what you're baking at home, but also you could be entered into our Star Baker of the Month competition. We've just had a whole new month start, December, so we're now looking for our December winner, and it could be you. So if you have a go, don't forget, take a photo if you can wait that long and upload it to the Kenwood Kids Club website. If it's your first time watching one of our videos here on the Kenwood Kids Club YouTube channel, don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button before you go today as well. That will make sure you never miss another one of our videos. And in fact, why not also click on the thumbs up icon as well, so I know you've been watching. I'm going to be back at the same time next week with another delicious bake along video, but until then, I do hope you enjoy having a go at my Nutella cupcakes. And of course, until next time, happy baking. Bye.